as I told you in the last issue, when I do these episodes, I have to use a cheat sheet. So, I have a whiteboard that I use. So I put all my notes on there, do my episodes from there. So, the first thing that I'm supposed to do is welcome everybody back. Thank you for taking a little time out of your day to listen to these words of, I guess we could call them wisdom, or we could call them, whatever you want. But it's a chance for me to share a little bit about myself, a little bit about my life and my experiences as a writer, editor, publisher, thinker, genius. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I said it. Genius. I claim that. As well as I have a right to, and I believe that you have a right to as well. I believe that we all have creative genius within us, and we make choices, we make decisions about how we want to use them, how we want to apply them to our lives, and how we can, in general, use them to improve our lives, improve the lives of those around us, and inevitably make the world a better place. So anyway, let's dive right into it. I kind of came to the conclusion that each of these intros is going to be probably about a half an hour or less. So, settled in, grab yourself a cup of tea, a spoiled tea, a cup of coffee, whatever it is that you need to sort of get through this exciting episode. These Party Like a Writer episodes celebrate the publication of my 12th book. Actually, I finished 2 books last year. One was my second memoir book, the second out of 3 in the series. It's not enough just to do one memoir book, and you have to do at least 3 or 4, I believe, because, just sort of think about your average life. You get to be about 64, which is my age today. That's a lot of days. That's a lot of nights. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of things said. A lot of things done. And if you, like me, made a commitment in your early years to get everything done that you needed to get done in this relatively short stretch of time that we're allotted here on planet Earth, well then, there's a whole bunch of stuff that to talk about, to share. And the more you share, the more people learn, the more they can sort of, take that knowledge and process it internally, and make certain decisions about their lives, and then share it forward. So we're celebrating the publication of my 12th book, and last year I also published a children's book. So here's a sample of Banana Pizza, and I'm very, very excited about this book. Banana Pizza. The kids just love it. And where's it at? My second memoir book, book 2, TOO. And just in general, before I dive into another subject, my books are not about writing. Just be forewarned. And all my books are available on Amazon in ebook and print versions. They are about the writing lifestyle, about surviving as a writer, and about how to apply writing to your everyday life. Now, I am a satirist, as you can see by these notations on your screen. I'm a satirist, so that comes naturally to me. So I integrate that into just about everything that I write, and I just can't stop it from happening. It's out of my control, and so, but I totally enjoy it. And so the idea is to share information and make people think. And the thing about satire, it's sort of an undefined art. It is, I think, been sort of defined by satirists from years and years and years ago, as far as I can see, not that many performers or artists claim the role of being satirists. We sort of, when we talk about satire, we say, oh, there was a bit of satire in that movie, or there's a bit of satire in that person's lecture. There's a bit of satire often equated with skepticism, and this and that and the other thing. But I took Philosophy 101, which I highly recommend for everyone. Aced it, loved it, and philosophy was great because it, sort of added this whole layer of processing, a whole layer of sort of defining things. Beginning with your thesis or your hypothesis, and then from there anything is possible. So what I found was that whenever I came up with a hypothesis, then my mind would go in all sorts of different directions, and I'd start having fun with it. And then references would come out of nowhere. It was great, And then with satire is not it's not like a knock you over the head, sort of humor or art, or it's more clever. I was out when I did my last Party Like a Writer episode last year at a local club, Clyde's. Someone came up to me and said, "Oh, you're really funny. Oh, you're a comedian. I really love that." And I said, "Well, I don't know. Am I a comedian? Am I are writers comedians, or comedians writers, or satirist comedians, or I believe that I should probably embrace that concept. But then again, are comedians intellectuals? Are intellectuals comedians? I mean, there's all these philosophical questions about, and then they all sort of circle around to how society defines art. And who is the arbiter of those definitions? Who is the person that says what's what? And once they say what's what, is it in fact, and does it have to remain that of which sort of like the pop culture or popular culture defines it as? So anyway, as I said, all my episodes I have a bad attitude. I shun definition, as I think you should too. Whatever you feel, wherever you feel your artistic, inclinations take you, go there. Don't listen to anybody else. Just do what you want to do. All right. So anyway, let's recap the last episode. I talked a little bit about my experience of meeting Dizzy Gillespie, my musical hero, and opening for Dizzy Gillespie in the Caboose Lounge at Union Station. And the backstory is that I kind of created in Denver, for lack of a better reference, sort of, a community that was similar to, Andy Warhol, well, artistic community, but it was like the Andy Warhol of the Rocky Mountains. Denver, Colorado in 1981 was a sleepy, forgotten little town. There was a massive recession from Reaganomics, and people were, kind of desperate. I graduated from Kansas State University, got my bus ticket to Denver, Colorado, stayed with my sister there while I got up on my feet. And once I was up on my feet, I then started to establish myself, and even to assert myself, sort of as a creative entity, and begin to attract, other artists. They said artists are, I think, sort of inherently attracted to other artists. And I was hell-bent, determined to be a publisher well before my time. Unlike Fine Wines, I would be a publisher well before my time. Because that's a commitment that I made to myself, and I wanted to defy convention. conventional wisdom was for young journalists coming out of college was that you would be a stringer for a variety of newspapers and magazines for 10 to 15 years before maybe you got a staff position. And in those days, as a stringer, you'd sell an article. I believe it was like 2 or 3 cents a word. So you were lucky to get $10, for an article. Or feature story, or $20 or $25, and then the publications would decide whether they wanted to accept your article, and then it would be months before you saw a check. And that's why I said in the last issue, newspapers, magazines, they've never been there to serve the general public, and diverse populations, and they were not there to serve the journalist, which is crazy. Most journalists starved or were left out in the cold and were never able to participate in the industry at a level that I believe they should have. So I made a commitment to change that for myself, and especially as an African American. There were hardly any African Americans in the publishing industry, unless it was a African American focused newspaper or magazine, and those were few and far between. All right, so anyway, let's get back to Dizzy Gillespie. So I started my sort of artistic journey there, and met all kinds of really interesting and fascinating people. And one thing that I did, let's tell you what job I had. So my first job was as a unit supervisor with Allstate Insurance Company. Terrible job. I only lasted 6 months, and after 6 months, I went to I was a unit supervisor, supervising units, and I'd have to trek out to the Denver Tech Center by bus every day. It was terrible, and I have to walk across a couple of cornfields, and even a couple of wheat fields. I think I tripped over some sheep, dogs, cats, cows. Finally to get to this fancy, office complex out in the middle of nowhere. And when I got there, I had one suit, so that the dust and dirt was covering my pant legs all the way up to my hips, and I'd have to dust them off. So, anyway, after 6 months as a unit supervisor, I went to my unit manager and said, I don't think this is working. And she kind of looked at me and said, would you like to make today your last day? I said, you do that thing with your eyes. I said, okay, all right, yeah. And she said, well, I'll have, HR, work up the paperwork, and thank you for your service. and that was it. That was it. That was the last of my management experience. I left Allstate, and I was glad to get out. I was happy because it was, I love the people that I work with, and the other young supervisors who were hired the same time they were great. Who were some of the people that I work with? There was, well, anyway, it was a young group. I don't remember the names. It was a long time ago. It was like 1981. But it was a pretty diverse group, right? And we all hung out together. We all went out to clubs together. We were a great, team. But I just couldn't be a unit supervisor. Even the regional manager, Reggie, was great. I mean, I'd go hang out with him on the weekends, and he would tool me around, the suburbs on his Harley. And he was African American, like six foot something, and big afro, and just a super nice guy. So I liked the people. It just wasn't the right job. And I learned early on that if it's not right, if it's not a fit, then get the hell out. Don't stick around until you're like so miserable that you can't do anything. All right, so I left that job and moved into Capitol Hill. And in one episode, later down the road in Denver, I do a tour of where I used to hang out in Denver. And I decided that I was going to do temp work. So I signed up with Kelly. And Kelly sent me over to a company called Chevron. Everybody's heard of Chevron. Because they needed a librarian. So I went there. It was only a week gig. I said, great. And they decided after a few months, I stayed for a few months. After a few months, they decided to buy out my contract with Kelly. And then I got the Kelly stand-in, Tiffany sterling silver pin, because I was awesome, let's face it. So I was a law librarian, and I was a geological librarian. And that sort of became my work world, my work-a-day world, from 9 to 5 or 8:30 to 5. And then in the evenings, I would go out and play piano at different clubs, and because I was a hack pianist. So that's how I came to tripping over Dizzy Gillespie. I went to Union Station, which was abandoned and kind of quiet, and there were only a few trains a day, maybe if that. And they were typically the cross-country trains. And there was a caboose lounge, was a little bar in the corner. I would go out on weekends and photograph, just take my camera and take pictures and explore the industrial areas of town. So I tripped over the caboose lounge, met Brad, the manager, began playing there happy hour, on Fridays after work. And then he was an LA transplant. He was a music producer. He knew Dizzy Gillespie and a lot of other jazz musicians, and so he did 2 concerts. One was Dizzy Gillespie and one was Stanley Turrentine, and he asked me to open for Dizzy Gillespie in the lounge, sort of outside of the performance hall. And I got a tiny little billing in the ad, opening in the lounge, Raymond Quinton on piano. It's crazy. All right, so anyway, that's how it happens. But again, that's sort of a testament too, and that is sort of representative of the experiences that I've had, that I've created. I could have stayed at home, reading books and writing manuscripts and, wishing I were a writer, right? But that's not my way. I knew I was a writer. At 21, I already knew I was a writer. So I created a zine that I published every quarter or so, and I would write these crazy satire stories. It was called Rabbit City Humor Magazine, and then built my sort of creative circle around that. And part of that creative circle included my good friend Lawrence Pryor, who I visited in Japan, Charles Emmons, who unfortunately and sadly passed away a couple of years ago, good friend of mine. He was African-American, both African-American. He had a master's in Russian studies and was the manager of the Auraria bookstore, but we spent a lot of time together. Herb Massey, Greg Harris is still in Denver, and I think Greg calls himself Seth. So he's like a poet, performer. He's like a modern day prophet, poet, beat poet, Greg, if you see this, then, just shoot me, hit me up and tell me, how you classify yourself. But I haven't talked to him in a long time. But we all spent a lot of time together. We were young. We'd go to the Mercury Cafe and party. So there were dancers, there were writers, there were videographers, even Ken Hamlin, whose father was a, pretty popular conservative, black conservative radio host. But Ken was pretty cool. So anyway, that's just an example to show you, wherever you go, whatever you do, you can create community. And you can create community based on, what your interests are, but that doesn't necessarily mean be exclusive. When I had parties, and I continued having parties, like every quarter or so, everybody was invited. And man, let me tell you, you should see me work a room. I'm telling you, nobody works a party like I do. And when I say work a party, that means make everybody feel welcomed and feel a part of that community. And that was really important to me. I mean, at 21 years old, that was, I saw how important that was. And even though, and this is the crazy thing, I consider myself the shyest person on earth. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about that when I tell you about my experience selling books door to door in Lansing, Michigan. It's a heck of a story. All right, so last issue. We talked about trucking a little bit. And I am a commercial truck driver, truck and bus driver. I'm a CDLB driver, which means I can drive the big box trucks, not the tractor trailers, big box trucks, and buses. And I found out that I love driving anything huge with four wheels. I even volunteered to train and learn how to drive the trolley, the Willamette trolley here. Just because, again, I believe that it's kind of cool to explore those layers of our intellect, of our psyche. I believe that we should be, to sort of reflect one of my heroes, Bruce Lee. He said, "Be like water," which I said, wow, that's great. And I believe should be like an onion and have many layers as a creative human being, and explore those layers every day of your life, and understand that those layers, I believe, intellectually, spiritually, are infinite. I don't believe you get to a place where, all the layers are gone. It's just like, as Bruce Lee said, when a water is in a glass, it takes the shape of the glass. And depending on the shape of the glass, it changes. When the water's on the ground, it takes the shape of the ground. And that was so beautiful. So anyway, be like an onion and explore your layers. No, it just so happens I'm totally into martial arts movies and things like that. I just think it's so cool. And at one point I published a magazine called Self-Defense, and it was so cool because I got to interview some of the greatest martial artists in Portland, Oregon. All right, so let me not get stuck on that. So let's go back to trucking, because this next episode, I continue that conversation. It's kind of funny. Last episode's video log from my 6,000-mile trek across America from Portland to Jacksonville, Florida, and back again, doing video logs along the way, just talking about life in America, race, class, and culture, and the lifestyle of being a trucker, being a bus driver, and then visiting friends and family, and doing a single event in Lawrence, Kansas, recording the whole thing. And it was great to see, friends and family all along the way. That is the Party Like a Writer Half World Tour. So in this last video log, I started talking about trucking. But then there was I think one day, I was a little tired, and I turned the camera on, and I think I pointed it at myself. I said, well, man, ain't nothing happening here. I ain't thinking about nothing. And you know what? There'll be days like that. Don't worry about it. Things will come back. And then the second day, as I was going through Lincoln, I think I dropped the camera in my lap or something. See, there's this blur of the camera in my lap while I'm talking. So we'll see that. So this is what I call, the road to Lawrence. Lawrence is where I visited with my sister, my friends Cindy and Kevin, and did the event at the historic Pacific Union Depot, downtown Lawrence, Kansas. And it was great. Recorded it all. So that's what's coming up at the end of my intro here. So getting back to that question about, are satirists comedians? Are comedians satirists? Well, I guess I can only, give it a try. I can only, sort of... I think I would like to try my hand at comedy. And it may not be this episode, but what I do want to end with in this episode is something like sort of out of the blue. I don't consider myself necessarily a techie or anything like that, but I'm fascinated with technology. When I moved to San Francisco and the desktop computer came out, I bought one of the first Tandy 1000s, and I learned how to use it using DOS. And I wrote my first book called The Afternoon Guide to Lunch in San Francisco's Financial District, which was my bestseller book. It was a hit. And I don't know if anybody out there has ever experienced getting 3,000 orders for your book in the mail with checks attached to them per day for 2 to 3 days after Herb Cain plugged my book in his column. He's a very popular columnist. That was a hell of an experience, and I'm not going to talk about it right now, but I'll tell you more about that brush with fame as a writer publisher. But I bought the Tandy 1000, and using DOS, I played games on it too. But I use it to write my book. And so I think there's a little picture here of my desk at my apartment in San Francisco with the Tandy 1000. Cost about $1,000, and man, it was so freaking cool. So, we fast forward today. I'm not afraid of technology. I think it's kind of cool. As I said, using technology to share my work with the world is how I view it. So when new technology comes out or something interesting comes out, I'll explore it. I'm not afraid of it. When the Macintosh came out, I learned how to use it. It came fairly easily to me. I learned how to use it. The next thing you know, I'm publishing multiple magazines with my partners in San Francisco. So, again, I think, society's going to keep evolving. And if you wake up in the morning and go, oh, well, that thing over there, it does that thing over there. I don't even know. I can't even know what do that do right there. I don't even know how to, I don't even know what that do. I think that creates a certain amount of anxiety and frustration for people because they're consciously saying, I refuse to learn about this thing in front of me. It's almost like, again, the rain is falling and you're like, well, I don't know. I don't need to go outside because, people say it's rain, you might get wet outside. So I don't need to go outside. I don't need to know anything about that. You let other people check that out. I don't even know about that. Or cars. People had the same attitude when cars were introduced. Any kind of new technology was introduced, but for some reason today, people look at this technology and they're adopting those same weird attitudes about technology. That people adopted, towards the cars or the radio or the television or, any kind of, hey, we're in it. We are in this society. We're in this world. We're in this love together. We're in this love together. Al Jarreau, man. Come on, do Al Jarreau. We're in it. If you're going to be in it to win it all of your life. As I said in the last episode, don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, I don't need to learn nothing today. I know everything. Ain't nothing to learn today. I don't need to write nothing. I don't need to learn. I don't need to see nothing. I just need to, get up in the morning and figure out how to get back in bed. Ain't nothing to see here. It is what it is. Anyway, I think that as an individual, you're doing yourself a great disservice. So whether you're young, just starting out in your writing career, whether you're older than me, I'm 64. I'm doing 64 of these episodes to celebrate 64 years on this earth. I made it past the first 30, and I got a lot of shit done. Made it past the second 30, got a whole bunch more shit done, and I'm cruising into 90. I got 90 in my sights. And if I make it there, I'm going to have a hell of a lot of fun. And I'm going to share it with the world. I'm going to, what I do, I'm going to share it with the world. Now, so getting back to technology, and then I have, one more note on that, because I want to show you something real cool. This podcast, this YouTube series, the YouTube series is just one part of how I promote and share this program with the world. The YouTube series I post, I don't expect to see a lot of views. Don't let that skew the exposure of this series, because I know on YouTube everybody's trying to get views, and it's not what it's all about for me. In my world, in my crazy little world, if one person sees it and one person is moved or influenced or laughs or says and is inspired to go out and do something wonderful every day, then I win. But it just so happens that there's the YouTube series, then I convert it to audio. There's the podcast I convert, and then I take that audio, and I created during the pandemic 2 radio stations, online internet radio stations that broadcast 24/7 all around the world. And I can tell you with a certain amount of confidence, because I'll show you in one of the episodes, I have some detailed reports that my brothers and sisters in Africa, especially Tanzania, listen by the thousands. New Zealand, Tanzania, England, Germany, France, all over Europe, listen to these episodes. So what you're listening to right now is getting propagated all over the world. And I believe, and I hope it's a message of hope, and a message of inspiration to do what you're going to do. If if you're a writer, write it, get it out there, learn the technology. Don't be afraid of the technology, but you have to take the time to learn it, because the part of your brain that learns how to use technology is the same part of your brain that you use to drive. You're just using it for a different purpose. You're repurposing those parts of your brain, so to speak. And don't let the messages of society beat you down to say that what you are thinking and what you feel and the ideas that you have are not important unless you're a gazillionaire, or that somebody in some big media company says, hey, this is good, this is cool, this is important, I think we need to get this out there. Get it out there. And there are people out there that will help you. And there are ways to do it. And I've figured out those ways. So anyway, the last thing I wanted to show you was, so I'm checking out this AI thing. Hey, writers, AI is out there. And I know there's a lot of writers saying, man, AI is going to kill writing. That may or may not be true. I kind of care, but I understand that with technology, as I said, it's like the car. It's coming. The horse and buggy is going to disappear. So if it's coming, we can either be afraid of it. We could be either ignore it, be afraid of it, and let whatever's going to happen. My take on it is I want to use it because I want to do audiobooks. Again, if you write something and it's so cool, hypothetically, the theory is that that only you can create it. And if you create it, get it out there any way you can now. Use whatever technology you can now, because AI is coming. It's going to be here, and and people are like, "Where is somebody going to copy my stuff?" Doesn't and if it's You can worry about the things you have control over. We won't have control over that. You have control over it if you decide, as I said in the last episode, that this is so great, I'll never share it with anyone because somebody might copy it. And there's, I've heard that argument for years and years and years and years and years. That I don't want to show it to anyone because somebody might copy it. And as I said, some of those writers, that manuscript is still collecting dust in a drawer somewhere because they're afraid somebody will copy it. I don't care if anybody copies my stuff. You want to know why? Because I copyright all my stuff. I go through the steps to protect my creative assets. All of my music is registered with BMI, publishing company, copyright. So it's all tracked. My books are copyrighted. And they're all published in their tracks. Somebody wants to copy it, let them copy it. If it's, becomes... But, I know this is a particular challenge for musicians in particular. It's a huge problem because people are pirating. They're like downloading lesser-known artists, renaming their work under another band, and then posting it on Spotify and making money off of it. That's going to happen. That's not new. That's always happened, right? But now you have better tools to track those people, and the publishing companies have better tools. So it's but that should not prevent you from going through the effort and attempting to get your work out there so that your work can potentially make society a better place. And again, I was marketing manager, national marketing manager for Hollywood Video, and with film and video in particular, it has always been a problem. It's a huger problem now. So technology has its benefits. Technology has its disadvantages. Technology has its risks, but technology is not going away. So don't bury your head in the sand and say, all right, so yeah, not interested. Oh, we'll go about my way. I ain't learning nothing. Ain't learning nothing today. Ain't writing nothing. Oh yeah, I can write, but I ain't writing nothing today. Because if I write it, somebody gonna steal it. Somebody steal it, they get all the benefit. I ain't getting nothing. So anyway, so here's a little cool thing. So I'm gonna convert all of my books using AI text to voice, and you get to share that journey with me. But here, ladies and gentlemen, is a little sample, and this sample is from my second memoir book, which I'm promoting with this Party Like a Writer tour. Party Like a Writer, The Writing Storm, Book 2, TOO, exclamation mark. And it's a little excerpt from what I believe is the most important chapter in this book. As I said, I'm totally into satire, but I'm also a very serious person too. Look at my eyes. Serious? Is it serious? You see what I'm saying? That's serious right there. So there is a chapter in the book. Oh yeah. So as I said, I identify genius genes that we all have within us. Each book has about 10 or 12. So you have to read the books to, get that knowledge. But it's pretty cool. Like, ultra intellectual improvisational writing. Genius gene. Okay, think about that. Now, the chapter. Okay, where's the chapters at? There's no chapters in this particular. Okay, I can tell you the chapter. This printing has no chapters. The Emperor has no close. Oh, you're there. Sorry. All right. The chapter is called Why Writers and Other Artists Commit Suicide. The Sound of Bees and Mosquitoes. So, I'm going to do excerpts from this particular chapter because it sort of frames my entire life and frames, creativity and art and society, so on. Again, I am a bit of a philosopher, artist, writer, genius. Can't draw for shit, though. I'm really kind of frustrated about that. I wanted to be a painter, but I can't. Even for a time there was doing post-humanistic, absurdist, abstract expressionist art pieces, tiny little things, about as big as a postcard. I don't know. Very frustrating. I did sunsets, like 10 of them. Very mediocre, very average, not really even worth talking about. So here, I'm researching AI right now. That particular chapter is about art and society in America and its status and what we need to do to change that. So I was researching AI apps online and trying to decide what I would use to either convert sections for these podcasts or convert my entire books. I'm zeroing in on the apps that I would like to use, and I'll share those with you with the next episode. So here's an excerpt from that chapter, and as I said, when you hear it on audio, it's amazing. You go like, whoa, did I write that? That sounds like really smart and deep and things of that nature, as Otto would say, things of that nature. And so it's about 45 seconds, so listen in.
Creativity is a giving process. Making, saving and keeping money is a taking process. At some point we have to realize that we have to give more to get more, and that may mean giving every artist a life grant to create whatever they want. Or we will witness the death of the soul of this society. Early societies recognized this. An artist with some skills could find a paid apprenticeship with masters of all types. Whereas, in this society, an artist with some skills has to work at a shit job for some asshole and struggle to find the intellectual bandwidth to create, to give. This process takes from society and results in conflict and more despair. Those creative minds are all around us. And we need them to help us understand, interpret and be better people.
All right, now was that cool or what? That was like, you can pick the voices that you want, and this particular app shows the artist that you use, and they have a pretty multicultural staff of artists, which I think is great. Again, it's opening up opportunities for multicultural voices to be used with all kinds of different cultural, regional inflections, right? How that? Well, anyway, accents and things of that nature. So it's creating opportunity, but it's also shifting opportunities too from traditional voice. Now I can tell you right now, I looked into having my audiobook, a voiceover done for my audiobook, and it was like $15,000. That's well out of my range. There still will people that will do that because they don't want to bother doing, dealing with those conversions themselves or dealing with technology. But then it's going to shift again. So when audiobooks came out, which was never existed before, it wasn't there before, except for, books on tapes. That only a few exclusive people ever got their books on tapes. That left out a huge multicultural segment of this society and the world who could get their books on tape. And now, ladies and gentlemen, everybody has access to that technology. So yeah, you can sit around and say, oh man, AI is coming, man, it's gonna but really, as I said in the last issue, the media has never been there to serve the greater society and be there to support and give everybody a voice. It's usually, again, there's a value proposition, there's a financial proposition, and so therefore, if you the publishers and the media come and say, we can make money at it, we'll invest in it. Everybody else, good luck. So now you have an opportunity to create your own audiobooks and get them out there. And that is pretty freaking cool. So anyway, I'll give you an update in the next issue, in the next episode. So I'm getting on 45 minutes here. That's perfect. So this episode's going to be over an hour. So what? I listen to podcasts sometimes 2 to 3 hours because I feel if it's important knowledge that I want, I will make the time to listen to it. I will make the time to process it, and I will do it consistently. Just think about your day and how much time you have. We have so much time, and I hope that the time that you spend listening to this is time well spent. That is at least the goal here. Or listen to parts of it. Listen to some of it. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. This last part, I think that the montage I'm going to do on the end is a montage of my office. You get like an inner works of a view of the office and all the cool stuff that I have here, all my toys and things. And then, maybe a little peek from the tour, from the event. But the video log this episode, I'm going through Nebraska. And, I was like dogging Nebraska and Kansas and Western Kansas. And, again, rightly so. If you study a little bit of history about Western Kansas, Western Nebraska, the prairie, it was a incredibly inhospitable place for human beings. When pioneers decided to come out here, the Native Americans had figured out how to adapt and adjust and live in these environments. But pioneers came out here. Many of them died from what was called prairie fever, aka cabin fever. No food, no people, no water, incredible cold, depression, anxiety, a lot of suicide. And, again, you have to feel bad for people, but, fast forward to today, I went to school in Fort Hays State University, and there's the college out in the middle of nowhere. There are towns all around. The fascinating thing about the area is the people and the communities that survived, and of course the Native Americans that adapted to living in such an inhospitable environment. And as I said in the last issue, there's a certain nostalgia about it, but that involves the ecology, the geology, the people, and even the African Americans who settled in Nicodemus, the first black settlement in western Kansas. The historical aspect of it is the fascinating part of it. But when you're driving through Nebraska or western Kansas, it's like there's a whole bunch of nothing. And so I'm driving through Nebraska. There was big rainstorms. I was chased by a storm, so there was a little greener. And then I got to Lincoln, and in Lincoln I start talking a little bit about the truck driving world. And again, who cares about truck drivers? We all should, because I think there's 19 or 20 million truck drivers. It is sort of this exclusive class of people who impact and influence millions and millions and millions of people, and it is a world that has typically been exclusive and left out people of color, but that's all changing now. That's all changing. I am a testament to that. But driving through Nebraska, and through the streets were so terrible. I mean, I almost destroyed my van because there were potholes in the middle of a highway. And so again, when you're driving, you spend a lot of time on the highway, you're listening to the radio, you may be listening to conservative talk or liberal talk or whatever. Typically it's conservative talk, and they're talking about how America's, falling apart, and you're driving down the road and you hit a pothole, boom, and your truck goes a wheel goes flying off, or your retrans flying off, and you go, well, yeah, America is falling apart. So you question, think about where those attitudes come from, and then that's propagated all throughout friends and family and community and so on. Again, people talk, people communicate, but what they talk about and what they think about, is influenced by what they see and what they hear and by the media and so on. So anyway, I talk a little bit about that. As I said, it is interesting in that we, as everybody, should think about that. And for me, lots to write about. That's been my world. Baby. So I make it to Lawrence, and what's great, again, you create opportunities. You create excitement for yourself and your world. You create things that make you happy. And so for me, the first stop was breakfast with Kevin Wilmot at a little restaurant in Lawrence, Kansas. So Kevin and I have been friends since we were in high school. I think I was in 9th grade. He was in 10th grade, and that's a whole story in and of itself. But Kevin and I supported each other. It was a tough time for both of us. We hung out together in his basement at the house that his father built in Junction City, Kansas, and we would cut up, we would laugh, and that's where I first learned how to cuss, because we would start listening to Richard Pryor. And I was like, man, this is great. Richard Pryor, Ramsey Lewis. What's the name of this funk? The Spider-Man album? Come on. All right, anyway, I got to go. Thanks, everybody, for joining me for this episode. Here is the next video log. The Road to Lawrence. All right, back again. So I think the point that I wanted to make, I'm almost on the outskirts of the city, and so I did scan a little bit to just show you the outskirts of Lincoln, Nebraska, the capital of Nebraska, and just to show that, again, from a truck driver's perspective, professional driver's perspective, you have to go into the city to deliver goods and products. What the hell? Was I not recording? All right, I gotta go because I'm still in the city. I gotta work my way out of here. But anyway, this is Nebraska, the outskirts of Lincoln, Nebraska, the capital. And as is typical, the outskirts of a city, the forgotten land. We just passed a ginormous prison, really crappy strip malls. The roads are crap. And again, as a truck driver, your typical truck driver will see this every day, and your typical truck driver will get the impression, we're delivering to warehouses and strip malls, we'll get the impression that there's just nothing but decay in America, and your typical truck driver is going to be delivering to restaurants where many of the workers are going to be Hispanic or kids, working these low-wage jobs, and they're going to be busting their asses. And so collectively, that idea that America is in decay, that I believe Trump tapped into, sort of resonates with them. Now, usually they're going to be making a pretty good wage, but a lot of times they can go back out into the country. A country house, an estate, or a family that owns acreage, or buy a house, outside of the city and be away so they won't really have to interact on any kind of level. They'll just have those impressions. But again, when you drive around and drive as much as I did at that job, and you see and you're driving on the roads that I had to drive on, part of you does say, man, America is shite. Why does it suck so bad out here? And then, of course, you're working your ass off. You're working really, really, really hard. So I'm going to come back after I get out of Nebraska and get back on the highway and get a firm footing on, Now you see, if I were a painter, you see the mist in the trees. And if I were a painter, that's the scene I would paint. But it's quite spectacular.
Looking place, dude.
I gotta tell you, I look around, I just go, okay, I'm here at my good friend Cindy Griffith's house. Made it 1,600 miles. And this is her farm. She has horses in the back. She used to have goats. She is inside doing as she's an advisor for students doing their doctoral theses. So she's doing a video conference inside. Okay. Now what I want to do is a trial run of my audio video system. And it looks like the waspices really like my solar panels. But so I want to test the load on my energy cell, how quickly we can charge it. Looks like it charges up pretty fast and handles a pretty good load. It's at 100%. But now the waspices are coming around. But I also have to keep it completely in the sun. So I'm kind of mucking out the van, organizing it a little bit more because I have so much stuff, and combining some stuff and organizing some stuff. So I'm going to do that for a few minutes, as well as for my Party Like a Writer event, as well as having, an ice cold glass of Chardonnay. And the Chardonnay is next to the fog machine liquid. I have liquid fog because you always have to have liquid fog, and I have 2 fog machines. So we are going to have some fun tomorrow. And it's looking a lot better, more organized. So I'll put a couple more containers in the back. See what happens. Alright, so I made it, and we're here. Time to have some real fun. Alright everybody, this is a Party Like a Writer behind the scenes. Okay, so it's film day, and my studio is a mess. And but I do like to give these little tours because it's kind of fun to see what happens behind the scenes. I'm into in these little lights. I love these little lights. There's the kids when they were younger, and I got a lighthouse there, turtle, microwave, disco lights, and this is the clock that's been making all that freaking noise. It's a funny clock, but it's kind of cool. It's barrel stack, and the price tag on this little clock is $390. But I got it at the second-hand store for $18. It's a hell of a clock. Okay, I've got my computer stack. Just picked up a Chromebook the other day for $25. It was on sale at the campus bookstore. I got stacks of computers. So I've got to reorganize it all. I made a big freaking mess on the floor down here. There's my books for the reading I'm going to do in a few minutes. Then at the second-hand store, I found these garden lights. LEDs. There's about 5 of them that I'm going to use for lighting, but I've got to set them up and put filters on the screens. I had to move everything over here. There's my Lionel clock. And, Darth Vader. And my printer's box with all my stuff in them. I'm pretty jazzed about that. And of course, these are my collections of pendants. It was stacked so high. There's so many of them. These are all pendants that I've collected that I wear because, I love my bling. And my action figures. There's the elephant, Yoda, and Buddha. And of course, Princess Leia. So anyway, behind the scenes, here at Neighborhood News Radio, Party Like a Writer, Half-World Tour. Now these lamps, these are like designer collector's lamps. Really odd. I'll have to look it up and tell you, who the designer is. But let's go out with my little Tiffany Dragonfly desk lamp. Alright, I'm getting ready to shoot an episode. Let's get busy.